We're still in Europe, but focused on the Russia invasion of Ukraine. In Kharkiv, specifically, there have been reports of heavy fighting in the northern region as Russian troops push on with ground and air offensives. Ukraine has also pulled back its troops from several villages in the border region of Kharkiv following continued pressure from Russian forces. Commander of the Kharkiv City Defense Forces, General Serhiy Melnik, says 3 combat engagements are still ongoing as Ukrainian troops repelled 11 attacks and are holding back Russia's advance. Russian shelling on the city left 1 person killed, 24 others injured, including 4 children. Authorities noted Russian forces attacked with UMPB D-30 bombs, which also left significant damage to residential buildings, cars, metro stations, and garages. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has cancelled all upcoming foreign trips as troops struggle to contain the new cross-border incursion. Meanwhile, the United Nations is raising concern over the situation in Ukraine's Kharkiv. Ukraine's State Emergency Service says 8,000 people have been evacuated now from the region following Russia's renewed offensive on the city. Spokesperson for the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Liz Throssell, says incursion triggers further displacement in Ukraine's second largest city, calling on Russia to immediately halt its ground assault in the region.
We are deeply concerned at the plight of civilians in Ukraine, particularly in the Kharkiv region, as Russian armed forces have stepped up their attacks in recent days. This assault has seized more Ukrainian territory, triggered further displacement, and potentially threatens Kharkiv, Ukraine's second largest city. Our human rights monitoring team in Ukraine, which is continuing to analyse information from the ground, has verified that at least 8 civilians have been killed and some 35 injured in the Kharkiv region since last Friday. This follows a pattern of civilian casualties documented for April, when at least 129 civilians were killed and 574 injured, the majority amid attacks by Russian armed forces along the front lines. In Kharkiv region, the situation is dire and as fighting intensifies. Colleagues in Kharkiv report air raid sirens sounding almost constantly and hearing explosions in the border area and in the city itself. Continuing attacks on Ukraine's energy infrastructure, which since March have affected millions across Ukraine, have also meant daily power cuts in many parts of Kharkiv. We once again call on the Russian Federation to immediately cease its armed attack against Ukraine, in line with the relevant resolutions of the UN General Assembly, the binding provisional measures ordered by the International Court of Justice, and with wider international law, and to withdraw to internationally recognized borders. Of course,
in the meantime, at least 2 people have been killed in a Russian attack on the city of Dnipro. Dnipro's regional governor, Sergei Lysak, made this known in a post on Telegram. He said the city's infrastructure was damaged as a result of the attack. Dnipro, which is the 4th largest city in Ukraine, is more than 100 miles from the front line in eastern Ukraine. Now, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has emphasized Washington's continuous support for Ukraine as Russia's aggression rages on. Mr. Blinken said the U.S. will provide an additional $2 billion in foreign military financing to Ukraine, saying the funding will provide additional weapons and invest in Ukraine's industrial base, stressing that the U.S. is committed to making sure Ukraine has the equipment it needs to succeed on the battlefield. On Tuesday, during his visit to Kyiv and the Polytechnic Institute, he affirmed U.S. commitment towards bringing Ukraine closer to NATO.
I have come to Ukraine with a message. You are not alone. The United States has been by your side from day one. We are with you today, and we will stay by your side until Ukraine's security, its sovereignty, its ability to choose its own path is guaranteed. We're bringing Ukraine closer to and then into NATO. We'll make sure that Ukraine's bridge to NATO is strong and well lit. Now, there's one more crucial step that we can take: making Russia pay for Ukraine's recovery and reconstruction. What Putin destroyed, Russia should and must pay to rebuild. It's what international law demands. It's what the Ukrainian people deserve. Our Congress has given us the power to seize Russian assets in the United States. We intend to use it. We're working with our G7 partners to see that Russia's immobilized sovereign assets are used to remedy the damage that Putin continues to cause. The G7 can unlock billions of dollars and send a powerful message to Putin that time is not on his side.
Meanwhile, the International Strategic Air Defense Symposium, ISAT, is underway in Germany. The country's defense minister, Boris Pistorius, seized the opportunity to underscore the importance of providing Ukraine with air defense capabilities. He also mentioned the serious consequences of air defense weaknesses are evident in Ukraine, and that since the beginning of the conflict, Berlin has joined forces to enhance Ukraine's air defense capabilities.
The importance of a well-functioning air defense, something which holds true for us as well. In NATO, we have committed ourselves repeatedly to more investments into our air and missile defense, including a rotational model for the most exposed allies at the eastern flank. In my opinion, the need of a credible and robust air defense has never been more important than today. I believe air defense to be a vital element of NATO's overall deterrence and defense. When it comes to air defense, we often refer to weapon systems, ranges, and flight altitudes. But above all, we are talking about protection. Protection for our troops on the ground as well as for our citizens in the street. Unfortunately, we can see the utterly disastrous consequences of gaps in air defense when looking to our Ukrainian friends. This is why, since the war started, we have joined forces in supporting Ukraine to increase the capabilities of its air defense. The IRIS-T systems delivered by Germany was able to ward off cruise missiles and drones just one day after its arrival in Ukraine. NATO and Germany continue to stand closely by Ukraine's side. This support is important, but we cannot afford to stop there. We need to continue to do more. Our aim is to accelerate industrial timelines, speed up procurement, and to procure as cost efficiently as possible. 21 European nations have already joined this endeavor. These kinds of cooperations are important, especially as our national and international resources in air defense are limited. In the Atlantic Alliance, we all have to invest a lot into air and missile defense. The fact that Germany has passed its highest defense budget in the history of the Bundeswehr, surpassing the 2% target, is an important milestone on our way towards strengthening our air defense as well as other capabilities.
Let's bring in the VOA's Anna Chernikova, who joins us from Kyiv. Anna, great to see you as always. So, the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken made that surprise visit to Kyiv on Tuesday. Was that a boost for President Zelensky on America's support for Kyiv?
Good evening. Well, definitely this visit is very important and is perceived very positive and is perceived indeed as a sign of support from the U.S. Antony Blinken is in Kyiv for 2 days. Usually such high top officials are visiting for a day and then go. Blinken is staying in Kyiv for 2 days, and today during the press conference with the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine, Dmytro Kuleba, Kuleba mentioned that all questions, like literally all questions that Ukraine and the US had to discuss were discussed. And yesterday also Mr. Blinken, Secretary Blinken met with President Zelensky, with the Prime Minister, with Minister of Foreign Affairs. They had a meeting for 2 days, and a lot of important questions indeed were discussed. And definitely Blinken came to Ukraine to demonstrate his support. And in all of his statements, he is giving a lot of hope to Ukrainians.
Yes, and he said something that was really pleasant to the Ukrainian president, and that's the fact that those weapons that Mr. Zelensky requested are on their way. He said they will be arriving soon. But how soon is the question, because troops on the front line desperately need these weapons to continue the fight against Russia.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Yesterday, during the press conference, not the press conference, but during his address at the Polytechnic Institute in Kyiv, where I was present, he said that the weapons will arrive any day now. So he basically said that in a couple of days, everything should be at the front line. And today, during the press conference with Mr. Kuleba, he said that some of the weapons has already arrived, and more are coming in the upcoming days. So, well, it looks like a situation should get better for Ukrainian forces at the front line. However, President Zelensky was particularly discussing with Blinken the strengthening of Ukrainian air defense, and he was asking for 2 additional Patriot systems to be allocated in Kharkiv and in the city of Kharkiv and in the Kharkiv region to help to protect this area and to protect people from Russian assault and Russian constant shelling. And it is clear that it is clear from what was said today during the press conference that this question is one of the top priorities, definitely. But at this point, there is no understanding of how soon the systems will be approved and will arrive to Ukraine. But Antony Blinken said that at least, this is under discussion, and it should, at least one system U.S. is considering to actually provide to Ukraine.
Yes, and he's also imploring on other Ukraine's allies to help provide more weapons for Ukraine, because that's also desperately needed. Russia launched a cross-border attack last week. Its forces claim they've entered the northeastern border town of Vovchansk, which is near Ukraine's second largest city, Kharkiv. We're wondering, because we know that attacks on Kharkiv have increased in the last few days. What is the situation there? And what has been the movement towards the second largest city?
Situation is tough. It remains tough. However, the intensity of Russian assault is not as high as it was previous days, and especially as it was at the beginning of this assault starting last week. Still, the city of Vovchansk is under Ukrainian control, but Russian forces are still trying to break through. What's important to mention that Russian forces are basically creating a wider area of the so-called gray zone in order to basically protect, as some experts believe, in order to protect Belgorod region from potential attacks from the Ukrainian side. But other experts say that Russian forces just want to have this gray zone on the territory of Ukraine in order to make sure that they have certain bridgehead when they have enough forces to start another offensive on the city of Kharkiv. So all this demonstrates that indeed they have already widened the area next to the front line, which is called now gray zone. So none of the sides have a perfect control of the zone. And unfortunately for the civilians who live there, their villages and towns which are in that zone are suffering both very heavy shelling as well as Russian land assault. And a lot of people, most of the civilians are evacuated. Already, some people remain in the territories. The city of Kharkiv at this point is under very heavy shelling, but it has been under such intensive shelling for the past a couple of months, even, well, I should say half a year probably. So it's nothing that which is new, but this continues. At this point, Ukrainian intelligence and Institute for the Study of War, experts of the Institute for the Study of War say that Kharkiv is not under the risk, at least at this point of time as we are talking, according to the situation, the Frontline, but situation is changing very rapidly and, well, every minute.
I can imagine that, Anna. And then, we're hearing stories about how tough it is for the troops on the front line as they wait for these weapons from the US. Could you describe to us, what the feeling is like, in Ukraine, knowing the possibility of Russian troops overrunning the country now, knowing that Ukraine is in a desperate situation?
There is a very clear understanding that Ukraine is lacking ammunition, lacking manpower, because Russia is bigger, Russia is more powerful in these terms, but at the same time, there is understanding that when military aid arrives, when Western aid arrives, Ukrainians will be able to keep the defense lines, and even maybe in some areas they will be able to succeed, because again we are looking at the situation as it was previously when Ukrainian forces had enough weapons. The general situation of the front line was very different. Ukrainians are waiting for this aid very much. Soldiers are waiting for this aid very much. A couple of days ago, soldiers who are currently in the Kharkiv region, Ukrainian soldiers, Ukrainian military, they said that in some areas, Russian superiority is 20 times up, so 20 times more weapon, 20 times more manpower. So we can imagine how tough the situation is. But again, Ukrainian forces had certain time to prepare that territory, that area for the defense. As we all remember, these areas, including the city of Vovchansk, were under occupation at the beginning of the invasion. So Ukrainian forces liberated that area when they liberated most of the Kharkiv region back in the days together with Izum. So these people and this territories already experienced occupation, and Ukrainian forces had some time to prepare a couple of lines of the defense, and this definitely helps as well to not to let Russian forces to move as fast as it was at the beginning of the full-scale invasion when they occupied these territories for the first time.
Great areas earlier, Anna, and I just wanted to talk about that because people in those areas have been asked to evacuate. Where are they going?
Again, a very difficult also issue. Most of them go to Kharkiv. This is the first point for them, at least. Afterwards, there are different options for people. So some people can remain. Well, they usually go to their relatives. So depending on where their relatives are, some people go to Kharkiv. Some people remain in Kharkiv or in the Kharkiv region, which is not under such heavy attacks or not that close to the border. Let's put it this way. Some people go to Poltava region, which is central part of the country, but it is considered quite close to the Kharkiv region. It's like halfway to Kyiv, and it's a very popular also a point for internally displaced people. Some people go to different parts of the country. It could be west, south, central parts of the country. Some people go abroad. So it all depends. It all depends on particular personal situation of the person, of the age, of social status, of social level of income, because of course different people need different level of support, and Ukrainian authorities are trying to provide temporary places to stay for these people. But of course, there are a lot of people and a lot of organizations, not only Ukrainian authorities, but just international organizations and private organizations are trying to allocate people all over Ukraine. And as I said, as I mentioned, some abroad.
It's almost beginning to look like the start of the war. Thanks again, Anna, and do stay safe.
Thank you.